Hi, everyone. As Carrie Ann said, my name is Ashley Sindoni. A little bit about me. I'm from upstate New York. I'm an FPA. I've been an FPA for about 3.5, 4 years now. And I have 4 children. Happy Friday. I will be honest with you guys. This is my first TA call, so I'm a bucket of nerves. I'm gonna take a deep breath. You guys want to take a deep breath with me? And we're good. We're going to get rolling, and it's Friday. We're going to have a great weekend. I'm going to be talking to everybody today about parents as partners. So what does that look like? What is parents as partners? Children depend on caregivers and service providers to support them, teach them, and guide them as they grow. Therefore, it is essential for family peer advocates to partner with parents and caregivers to provide a safe and supportive environment for the youth. Family peer advocates can begin to build relationships with the family at our first contact. Along the way, there may be barriers that hinder relationship growth. However, FPAs can use techniques such as body language, life experience, empathy, and positive communication to overcome these obstacles. Being able to create a supportive partnership with parents and caregivers will be beneficial for the children we work with. Today, we're going to be talking about understanding what it means to create a partnership between FPAs and families. Partnership can mean a lot of different things. So, what is that going to look like for us? Comprehending how an FPA can begin building trust from the very first contact with our families. Techniques on recognizing the challenges of building a partnership and overcoming barriers with building a working relationship. So we are going to take a moment to fill out a brief poll. Can you please explain what your role is and what county you are located in?
Okay, so I'm gonna put the poll up. Just a moment. Okay, you should see a pop-up in front of you. We're just asking two simple questions so we can know who has attended our event. What is your role and what county are you in or are you serving? Lots of answers coming in. Give a few more moments for folks to answer the poll. Beautiful. Looks like just about everybody has answered it. I'm going to end the poll. And let's see who we have with us. So we have the majority of people here are family peer advocates. Awesome, love to see it. We have a FPA supervisor who also holds the credential. Wonderful. We have somebody who has identified as other, and if that person is willing to put their role into the chat, that would be fantastic. Thank you guys so much. We'll get back to our listening to Ashley talk about some amazing things.
Okay. So we will be doing an icebreaker. In one word, I'd like you to describe what you think when you hear the word partnership. And I'm going to be trying to use a new tool today. So if you could bear with me for a minute, I'm going to be using something called Whiteboard. I don't know if anyone has ever used that before, but I'll kind of explain what that looks like. I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a moment. Let's see. Can everybody see the whiteboard? Yes, okay. So let me see. There is, let's see, 1 second here. Waiting someone. There should be a sticky note and you let me grab it. Sorry. Okay. There's a shape tool and it kind of looks like a sticky note. If you grab that, you can make a square and you can write in there what it means to you, what the word partnership means to you, if you can figure it out. If you can't figure it out, um, we can just put it in the chat, or if you'd rather put it in the chat, you can. This is my first time using it. We just kind of want to see how it works and yeah, see how it goes. So collaboration, that's good. Let's see here. Yeah, you can see you can write on it. I'm looking for my sticky note. So yeah, you can place shapes on there, right in there. We have collaboration, mutual support. I love it.
The
Communicate.
sticky note should be the sixth one, option down on the toolbar.
Yeah, there it is. Thank you, Carrie Ann. Yeah, so if you just click it in there, you can put it in there. Partnership is agreeing to share. I love that. Communication, mutual support, collaboration, hope. I like that. Trust, I see. Really great. Together, understanding. These are really awesome. Connection, yes. Partnership is connection. It can mean a lot of different things, right? We have friendly partnership. We have business partnerships. Maybe we can have romantic partnerships. So, all those different things. Safety, I love that one. Really good. We'll do this for another minute if anyone else wants to add to it, minute or two. Collaboration and empathy. Achieving a goal. Helping to achieve a goal. Sorry about that. Hope, trust. Good. We'll give it one more minute. Everyone, oh, sorry. Everyone keeps taking the good ones. There's a lot of them, right? Okay. Does anyone else have anything you want to share before we move on from the icebreaker? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and close whiteboard. And I'm going to share my screen again. Thank you all for sharing those. Those are really great. A collaboration and empathy. I see that one again. Those are really awesome. Okay, so we're back to sharing my screen. Thank you for doing that. Okay, so we're going to move on. Okay, so now let's start out by talking what is a partnership. You all just came up with some really great answers to what partnership means to you. So in our role as a family peer advocate, it's a working relationship between the parent and caregiver and the family peer advocate to reach common goals, provide support and advocacy. A strong partnership is made by using insights from the caregiver along with the life experience and knowledge provided by the family peer advocate. And if you look at the picture over here, we have our family peer advocates, us, and we might have the expertise. Maybe we share some of the life experiences the family has gone through. We can give them advice. We can help them work through some complex systems. So we have that expertise where the parent, they know their child. They are the experienced one in their child. They've been with them. They've seen their good days. They've seen their bad days. And they have that experience. One thing that happened to me with my child, she was super hyper, and I would tell the doctor, like, listen, I think there's something going on here. And every time she'd go to the doctor's office, she'd be so quiet and well behaved. Has it happened to anyone? So he just kind of had to take my word on it. But that's the importance of listening to parents, is they've seen the good days and the bad days. So us together with the parent, it benefits the youth. So we have the youth over here. So they're the ones that get the benefit of us partnering with the families, right? So what are some benefits that we get from collaboration or partnering with families? So family-driven care is important, right? Families learn to be effective decision makers. So I always like to say, and my supervisor has always told me, that we're trying to work our way out of a job. So we want families to be able to make decisions, think through those decisions, even after we're gone. Um, FPAs utilize a family voice, right? So sometimes families, when we talk to them, they might not know exactly what they want, or they might know what they want, but they don't know how to say it. So FPAs, we can guide them to using their family voice and figuring out, what it is that they want. And families make an impact on current policies. So in the child, in our systems, families and FPAs, the experiences we have are what can make differences, and create the changes that are needed, right? So using that family voice, partnering with families, strengthening their skills, they're the ones that can make impact on the policies that need to be changed, right? Secondly, is realized ambitions. So, guidance from an FPA helps the caregiver realize their strengths and abilities. We just kind of touched on that a little bit. A lot of times, families might be in the thick of it, having hard days. Maybe they haven't had a lot of support, but with our guidance, they can realize their strengths and abilities. Going back to the notes you've taken, showing them the evidence of how far they've come, that can all help them do that, strengthen their or show them their strengths. And empowered families empower others. FPAs lead families to become FPAs. So, families who have been through it, they can share their stories with others and they can help others. I became a family peer advocate because I had a family peer advocate, right? I don't know if maybe other people are like that also. If you've had a family peer advocate and, it encouraged you to become a family peer advocate, we can, we can support our families, give them that voice, give them that confidence to share their stories if they would like to and if they're willing to, and it can help make those changes we are talking about. Enhance child development. So shared effort by the caregiver and the FPA increases the likelihood of identifying and accommodating the youth's unique needs and strengths. So we showed before that when we partner with families, the youth is the one that's going to benefit, right? When they have that strong uh, group backing them up, and the strong support of us partnering with their families, that's going to increase the likelihood of them um, increasing their strengths. And children's confidence grows. They are the future leaders, teachers, and more. So again, children having that strong support can help them overcome some of their challenges. So trust begins with a first interaction. Um, when we there's only one you only have one chance to make a first impression, right? So when we first contact that family, they're going to have a first impression about us, and we want to make sure that first impression is a good one, right? So when our first contact, when we first reach out to that family, you're going to want to explain your role, maybe tell them what you can do, what you can't do. A lot of times families are used to service providers coming in and telling them like what they need to work on and what they need to do. So our role is going to be a little bit different, where we're going to rely on the family to tell us what they need. So we want to explain that to them, explain, if your agency has any limitations, you want to make sure you explain that to them right from the very beginning. Asking open-ended questions to understand the family's needs. Again, families, when we meet with families in their homes or in the community, when they come into our offices, sometimes they're overwhelmed, right? So they might not know how to express their needs, and we might have to pull that information from them. And we can do that by asking open-ended questions, listening to them to figure out what their needs are and kind of repeating what we hear from them. And then again, be transparent about your limitations and boundaries. I think that's good, from the very beginning to kind of explain what your boundaries are and then be consistent with those boundaries. If there are organizations have certain rules or regulations, things we can't do, things we shouldn't be doing, we want to make sure that we let the families know that and be consistent about it. Maybe for an example, you shut your phone off at 5 o'clock, right? And that's your time with your family. if one weekend we leave our phone on and we start answering calls, families might think that we are going to be available at 5, you know? So we want to be consistent with what our limitations are, what our boundaries are. And the second part of that is being consistent with the families. We might meet with families who are reluctant to meet with us, right? Maybe they don't answer our calls. Maybe they're hesitant to meet with us. Maybe they haven't had good service providers work with them in the past. And my supervisor always used to tell me to be consistent with that family and show them that you're going to keep showing up, right? As long as they want you there and as long as they want your help, be consistent with them, call them back, follow up with them, let them know. And then lastly, follow up promptly. So if you tell a family, you know, hey, I'm going to look into this, I'll get back to you in a day. We want to make sure we do that. Follow up with the family if they have something going on. Reach out to them, say, hey, you know, how did that meeting go? Or, you know, follow up with them if you say you're going to follow up with them. Um, so I want to open it up. You can raise your hand. You can put it in the chat if you'd like to. Are there any ways that maybe you have built trust with your families and your work? Something we can kind of share with everybody? Kristen says, I was inspired by, oh, you were inspired by an FPA. That's awesome. So you were inspired by an FPA. I also work to commend caregivers that would also make great FPAs, right? Awesome. So any ways that we can
Yes.
gain the trust? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Andrea has her hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Andrea.
Yes. So I find that when my first interaction with parents, I let them know like the role of an FPA and what we do and how we have lived experience and we're all parents. I feel like once I bring up that piece of we are parents too, they just have a little bit more trust and they're a little bit more willing to open up with me. That's what I've seen.
Yeah, yeah. So sharing our lived experience, letting them know that they're not alone. Kristen says that obviously sharing my lived experience, but letting them know they're valuable part of the treatment team. Person family centered. Right. Yes, they're the expert and they are part of the team. Right. Naisha says a slight look into my past. Yeah, letting them know that they're not alone, that we might have been through something similar. Right. So one thing that I like to remember is we might not have the exact same experiences as a family. For example, I come from medically fragile, right? So when I was getting into mental health, I wasn't, I haven't, at that time, I hadn't had an experience with mental health, but we can share, we can relate to the family's feelings. Maybe they're feeling fearful for their child, or maybe they're confused. And even if we haven't been through that same experience, we have probably felt some of those same feelings for our children, right? So um, letting them know your life experience and letting them know. Anybody else have anything else they want to share before we move on? Erica says showing up and being consistent. Yeah, great. Thank you. Angelica says letting them understand they are valuable and supportive. I'm using a second screen, so excuse me as I turn this way. Julie says letting them know I'm here to help and not judge. I like that. Not judge, right? We are not judgmental. We come in, being in the same place they have at one time, right? Very good. Thank you all for sharing that. I'll give it another minute if anyone else wants to share. Albert says I allow them to vent or just empty out. Afterwards, when they apologize, I let them know that's what I'm here for and encourage them to do it again because it removes stress. Yeah, really great. Andrea says validation is super important too. Yes, validation. Very good. Thank you all for sharing. Okay, go on to the next screen. Okay, so what does it mean to be family friendly, family involved, and family driven? Family friendly Family-friendly includes making a welcoming environment and having a warm, welcoming demeanor. Family-involved. FPAs see the family as a resource and seek their input in treatment and decision-making. Family-driven. The family is a primary decision maker. Families' priorities and preferences are valued. So family-friendly collaboration. So when we're in our office, how can we create a family-friendly environment? So our office space is a welcoming environment with comfortable seating, toys. Childcare may be provided when hosting groups. Maybe you have nursing rooms. Maybe there's changing tables in the bathrooms that are available. I like to say, consider your own needs and extend that same level of support and consideration to others. So I kind of want to reflect, and if you have an office space, kind of think about that office space. Is that family friendly? When they come in, do they feel welcome? Something organizations might be able to do is have a night where you invite the community in and maybe put some of their artwork on the walls, make that really a welcoming environment. So now when we talk about family friendly in the home, what does that look like? Because we're going into someone's home, that's their space, right? Our office, we can make it the way we can set up our office, but in a home, you're going into their space. So home visitors can be family friendly by asking the family what they would like to be called, showing respect for the family and their culture, meeting them in their home or a place that is convenient for them. Usually we're in the homes, but sometimes if it's more convenient, maybe to meet the family at a coffee shop, something like that, we can do that. I think body language is important, right? Um, Kristen says, I have a community resource bulletin board and have a lot of quotes, affirmations posted specifically for parents of special needs children. That's really cool. So that's how she makes her office space family friendly. I love that. So going in the home, I think body language is important. How you place your body. We don't want to like kind of sit with our arms crossed, right? So body language is important. Making the family feel comfortable. Asking them, maybe even asking them, like, where would you feel comfortable? You want to go in the kitchen? Would you like to sit on the couch? Really making sure that they are comfortable in their space and letting them know that, we're a visitor here and we're here to make you feel comfortable. Alexandria says, ask where they would like me to sit. Yeah, right. Compliment art or pictures on the walls. Very good. Yeah. And actually, you guys are getting ahead of me because I was going to ask, what are some ways FBAs can be family friendly when going into others' homes? So we're going into the house. Is there anything you have done to make that family friendly? You can pop it right in the chat if you want. You can raise your hand if you want, whatever you're more comfortable with. We've already gotten a couple answers. Ask which way I should enter. Yeah, always find something to compliment. Greet everyone. Ask if they want me to take my shoes off. Yeah, good ones. Kind of looking to make sure anyone has their hand up. Acknowledge the role they have been playing and encourage them to keep it up. Oh, that's a really good one. Yeah, these are great answers. Let them lead me to where they'd like to sit. Use your manners. Thank you for opening your home. Yeah. I used to have OT and PT come in my house, and every time they would come in, I'd always be so worried, right? I'd vacuum and clean up the space, and when they came in, I would still say like, "Oh, sorry about the mess," even though I just cleaned, right? Just to kind of cover my bases. So, we can understand what it's like going into families' homes, compliment their space, respect their opening. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts? Oops. Okay, I'll give it one more minute. Smile. Smiles go a long way. We're going to talk about that in a little while. Greet everyone in the home. Good. All right, so we will move on to the next slide. Thank you for sharing your answers. So family involved collaboration. Oh, Angelica says, be gracious. Yes. Family involved collaboration. Families are viewed as a resource, right? So we talked about families being, they're being with their child. They know the ins, the outs. They know when their child is having a good day or a bad day and what they've been through. So we want to use that family as a resource. Families involved in the planning of their youth's treatment, yes. Asking the family what they would like to work on and asking those open-ended questions, pulling from the family what they need and what they want. And families are the decision makers. A lot of times, we might ask the family, what they want to work on, or maybe even at meetings, families might turn to us and look for answers, but we always want to put that back to the family, right? We might be able to help and guide them and coach them to what they had talked about, but we want the families to be the decision makers. We want to work ourselves out of position, right? And give them the confidence they need to make the decisions on their own. So when families turn to us, we want to put it back on them. We'll remember what we talked about the other day, or kind of remind them of what we've talked about, what they had said in the past, of what they might want to work on or what they need. You want the family to be the decision makers. So what is family-driven collaboration? So family is involved in all aspects of care. So I want you to remember nothing about me without me. So, always involve the family, always go back to the family, make sure that they are there every step of the way. Families are viewed as the expert on their children. I find working with medically fragile, that's something that comes up a lot with doctors. We might be meeting with doctors, maybe counselors, maybe psychologists. We want the family to be the expert and have that confidence. So as a parent, sometimes it might not be easy talking to those people, other service providers, right? But we want to remind them that they are the expert on their children, and give them that confidence. Family values and culture are priority. So making this is one, especially when we're going in the home, we want to make sure we respect their culture, make that their values. Maybe some families might not meet certain times of the day or certain days of the week. So we want to make sure we respect that. Families decide their goals and the direction they would like to take. As FPAs going into the home or working with the family, we might see things that the family would like to work on, or they've even mentioned things that they find to be a problem or something that they want to change. But at the end of the day, they have to choose the direction they would like to take. So even if they say, I really want my son to start going to school on time, but they don't want to work on that right now. They'd rather work on something else. We really should respect the direction the family would like to take, right? So kind of letting them lead the way and show us where they would like to go, and just reminding them of what they had mentioned, and what, they said they wanted to work on. So, but letting them take the direction. Family driven in an agency. So when we're working with an agency, what does it mean to be family driven? So families are invited to be involved in agency decisions. And when I'm going over this, I want you to think about the agency you work for. Family voice is sought after. What does that look like? Families might make up advisory committees. Families I had mentioned before, might be invited to come in and kind of make your space a family friendly space, make that a space they would be comfortable. Maybe family members are involved in interviews for new employees, agency policies and procedures. We want to remember again that families are the experts. They're the ones that see what changes need to take place. And using their voice, they're the ones that can help those changes take place. So when we are thinking about our agency, we really want to go back to those families. What do you need? What do you want to see changed? And that's really going to help us in our agencies provide the best for our families. So this is just a reflection question. You don't necessarily have to answer this, but I want you to think about it. Think about, again, your agency that you're involved in. How involved are families in your agencies? Do you have advisory committees? Are families invited in for interviews? Are they invited to meetings you might have? You have an advisory committee. Now, what steps can you take to involve families in agency decisions. So maybe that's something you can think about, talk to your supervisors about, and really think about how can we make our agency family driven and involve those families in our day-to-day. Identifying challenges. Who identifies the challenges when collaborating with a family? So we're meeting with a family, we're listening to them. Um, let's see, the family should always tell you what their challenges are and what they want to work on. That being said, the family will, when we talk to them, the parents, the caregivers, they'll tell us what's going on. Telling a family what you think their challenges are may create a relationship of distrust and hinder open dialogue. So we do want the families to tell us. And what I mean by this is we don't want to come in and say, hey, well, I think you need to work on this, this, and this, right? What we can do is when we're listening to the families and when they're telling us what their challenges have been, what they've been through, we can pull out and remind them, okay, so you said that this is something you want to change. This is something you want to change. So although we're not telling them what we think their challenges are, we can pull that information from talking to them and kind of remind them of that and let them help them guide them to see what they'd like to change, what goals they'd like to create. We can get that from conversation. So although we're not telling them directly our opinion, we can get that information from conversations we have with the family, if that makes sense. Okay, so gaining the trust of the family. The family may initially exhibit reluctance to place their trust in a service provider. So it might take a while to gain the trust of families, especially if they're working with a lot of other service providers. Maybe they've told their story a bunch of times. So taking our time, really being patient with that family and taking our time with them. Past experiences, having to recount their story multiple times, and fear of judgment are along the many reasons for distrust. So um, the family might not trust us right away. It might take some time, right? So self-reflection, again, something to think about. Think about the families you're working with now, maybe some of the families you worked with in the past. What are some factors that may have initially inhibited trust? So think about that. And what strategies did you employ to build trust? You can answer this if you want, but this is just a self-reflection. So just something you can think about if you'd like to. And so how do we view the families? Sometimes the families are viewed as the problem. Sometimes parents are seen as causing the issues with their children, which can sometimes lead to the removal of the children. This isolates the family and stops providers from viewing the family as a resource. When I first started working, I was working with a company that worked very closely with Department of Social Services, and a lot of times they would go into the homes. This one company I would work with and tell the family, you know, you need to work on this or you need to work on that. And I don't know if anyone has ever made a call to another service provider, and when you're on that call, they just tell you everything that the family has done wrong or everything that has, you know, been wrong recently, and that can be seen as viewing the family as the problem, right? Instead of considering what the family has gone through. Maybe they're not meeting with them, but what is the reason they're not meeting with them? Is it because they fear that judgment? So really trying not to look at the family as a problem and seeing the cause behind the action, right? Maybe the house is really messy, but what is the reason for that? Maybe if the house is messy, maybe the mom and dad are overwhelmed, or you know, maybe they're trying to get their kids to go to school and make sure they're eating, and so the house isn't top priority. We rarely want to kind of consider the reasons and what the family has been through, what our own experiences are. And especially when we're, you know, talking to other service providers, we want to kind of avoid this. Kristen says this is the biggest challenge in my agency, right? Seeing the family is a problem. And that could really inhibit trust, right? That we just talked about gaining that family's trust. if they've had, 10 other service providers and they've all came in and told them everything they're doing wrong, and we come in and we say, hey, we're here to help, they're going to be like, well, are you really? Because I've talked to all these people and they told me everything I'm doing wrong. So we really kind of want to avoid this. And when we talked about our first our first interaction with the family, we want to tell them how we're different, and sharing that lived experience is huge. Saying like, listen, I know that you've talked to a lot of other service providers. I know that they've told you everything you're doing wrong, and I've been there. Like I've had people do the same thing to me. I know it feels awful, but let's beat this. Let's, use you as the expert and let's overcome this. So the problem. We don't want to view the families as the problem. Client, I just came out of a 4-day PEP training and we talked about this. Viewing families as clients can put the provider in control and may cause a power imbalance. And we'll talk about this in a minute. We want to partner with families, right? So if we call them the client, that kind of puts us, they might view that as putting us in control. And we really want to be equal with them. We use their expertise on their child with our expertise and our history and complex systems. So we want to partner with them. We don't want them to be the client. We don't want them to feel like they're a client or, we're over them. We want them to feel equal to us, like we're a partner and someone they can trust and turn to. And lastly, in green, is partners. So viewing families as partners can create a strong relationship. This sets the stage for open communication, mutual respect, and allows the family to go into the driver's seat. So really putting that family in the driver's seat, open communication, showing them respect, taking our time to just listen to them. Sometimes we don't need to say anything. We just need to listen to them and let them have, I think somebody said earlier, just giving them that space to vent, right? They all need that space to vent sometimes. Um, so yeah, so not the problem, not a client, but we're partners. So before I go on, I just gave everyone a lot of information. I just want to pause for a second, and ask if anyone has any questions, if anyone has any comments on what we've gone over so far. Any experiences you may have had, that related to any of this information. I'll wait just a minute to see if there's any questions or comments.
Actually, I have just a quick thing I would like to share. So
Sure.
in my work previously as like community health worker, I was given all the hard cases that people couldn't meet with people, they couldn't contact them. And so when I would go in, I would go in respectfully, ask permission. Thank you for welcoming me here today, meeting with me. But what I found was that a lot of the workers had made them feel judged, or that they were going to have like CPS called on them for the conditions of their housing. So it was like just going into their home and not being judgmental, listening to what their needs were, and working from there, not going in with a preset agenda saying this is what we have to have done,
Mhm.
just completing the intake forms that needed to occur and then going from there, but not going in saying this is what the other workers told me you have to do. It was like I allowed them to. So I just wanted to add that as I'm listening.
Yeah, no, really great things. One of the things you just said, a hard case, right? Has anyone had a case, or you've gotten a referral and they're like, oh, this is a hard family to work with, right? And so it automatically kind of puts that in your head that this is a hard family and we want to kind of overcome that. Andrea, you had your hand raised. Did you want to add something?
No, I just wanted to mention about a family that I started working with back in November, and just seeing that shift of how they were very apprehensive, and they were referred by the school, and the social worker that referred them basically, even in the referral, said that the family was a little bit like reluctant. Well, mom was reluctant to receiving supports. But I think now she's like, so mom is very grateful. You know, she was displaced by a fire last year. The husband abandoned the family a couple months after that. So it's a big, you know, it's a big change in her life.
Mhm.
But just working with her, and helping her process everything that's, and like accepting, you know, her new reality. Um, and then just her being able to say that she just wants to make her current situation as normal as possible for her kids,
Mhm.
which is not easy, but you know, I've been trying to help her process it, and I'm glad that she was finally open to having a wraparound meeting at the school to see how the boys have been adjusting to their new school, because they completely changed schools and everything, and they moved to a different town. Um, and she's very grateful that she was able to make that connection with the new school and get her sons this support that they need in the school.
Yeah, that's amazing. Great job on gaining her trust. You shared that a great example. She was they said she was reluctant, right? But what is the reason behind that? And you kind of shared that, the reasons behind that. I think a lot of times working with families aren't just difficult or hard families for no reason, right? There's a reason behind that. And, you know, we've all come from it where we've had our own challenges. So what are those challenges that make the family reluctant, or why might they not want to work with us? Thank you for sharing that, and great job on the work you're doing. Um, Albert, I think I had saw your hand up. Did you want to add something? Okay, so Kristen, you said in the comments, this is a great reminder for us to let families know we're alongside and not over, and extremely validating. I continue to remind members of the clinical team my role and purpose. Yes, that's right. Maria says, I work in emergency psychiatric unit in a hospital, and you need to help design boundaries when working with parents in the CPAP unit. Yeah, thank you.
I apologize. My phone was muted.
It's okay.
Um, I was saying that usually the people who say, you know, these families are hard to work with, they either want things easier, they want it going according to schedule or structure, and they don't want to take the time to pay attention to what the family really needs. When you pay attention to what the family needs, you know, and you help them with that need, that's when it becomes a partnership. No matter what you want them to do, you put their needs first, help them prioritize their needs by their levels, you know, and then they'll be willing to work with anything else. You
Right.
built that trust with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. I think a lot of us in this role, we're probably fixers. I'm a fixer. I want to fix the problem. And so sometimes when we go in, we don't mean it in a bad way when we try to fix the problems, right? But we always need to remind ourselves to take a step back. And that's something I had to do often when working with families is it's not they're living the life day to day. It's not my job to fix it or point out what they need to fix. This is their life. They're going to be the ones living it, so they need to tell me. So remind ourselves that we're not fixers. We're here to come alongside and, as Albert said, partner with that family, right? We might see things that might not be right for us, but it's not us living that day to day, right? We want to keep that family's culture, what they're how they're comfortable. What do they want to work on? Not us. There's a couple comments. Let's see. Angelica says, all families have challenges. Our place in the lives is to listen, yes, and not judge, to support and take over. Absolutely. Thank you. And Andrea says, I remind families they know their family best. Right. Yeah, exactly. I'll take one more minute or two for any more questions, comments. I love the conversation. Maria says, I work alongside a clinical team only on day shift, 5 days a week, integrating with the unit. Great job. Any more questions or comments before we move on? Oh, Julie, did you you had your hand raised?
Yes, and I was also going to add on to what a few people have already sort of stated, that sometimes, when you receive the referral, sometimes these families have had multiple doors slammed in their faces, and you are that first door to open. And
Mhm.
so they have all this, everything that's going on kind of pouring out. And so I would say, as a family education specialist and also as a FPA, just the credential for right now, I would say don't take it personal,
Mhm.
because it's not, and then you have to think about, it's not about you, it's about you supporting the parent. And you also have to, let them know, hey, I utilize an empowerment model, and this is how I can help. And I don't, suggest things to my families. I usually just, if they're like, oh, I wonder what I could do about this and that, I offer options and I let them make the choice, because they have to make, that choice of what's best for their families. I
Yeah.
can't do that because I'm not going to always be alongside them. You understand what I'm saying? They have to get used to making that choice. And sometimes they need a little hand holding at first. But unfortunately, everybody has to be let go. I mean, that's not a good way to say it, but I hope you guys understand what
Yeah,
I'm saying. Thank
right.
you for that, Ashley.
Thank you so much for sharing. And you bring up a good point that it might take some hand holding, right? Where especially when they've had doors shut in their faces and they've had people tell them, we might have to do a little bit more in the beginning, but eventually, yes, we do have to let that hand go and kind of get them to go on their own. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Great point. Kristen, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I think it's really important to remember that, just because we as FPAs are at a certain point in our journey, doesn't mean that these families are at that point. Some of them are just at the very beginning stages of what they're going through.
Mhm.
And so when a therapist comes to me and says, when you meet with this family, you need to tell the mom she needs family therapy. You need to tell the mom she needs her own trauma processing, blah, blah, blah. A lot of times I'll think, that's funny because when I talked to mom, she told me I need food in my cupboard. And
Yeah.
like that's her biggest concern right now. And
Mhm.
so, I think it's just important for us to remember that. And I think it's very important for us to remember that we're those bridges between, like if you
Mhm.
said, the agency viewing them as a problem and telling you what you need to do for the family versus what the family tells you that they need. And so I think this is just such a great reminder that like we can fill that role. Like, yes, we're partnering with the family and working alongside them, but we're also bridging that gap between like maybe some miscommunication or some misunderstandings.
Yeah, exactly. And right, how are we going to tell family that they need counseling or they need to do something when they don't know where they're going to lay their head the next day or they don't know where the next meal is coming from? Great point in that. Anybody else have any questions, comments, anything they would like to add? This is such great conversation. Okay, so I am going to move on. Oh, Andrea, I'm sorry, you can go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that sometimes I've worked with families who already have like very great advocacy skills. And whenever they demonstrate that and tell me, oh, this is what I did. I spoke with the school because my son needs an after school program or something like that, an example. I always make sure to commend them and congratulate them and say, wow, like kind of like, express that they are very capable and that they are their child's best advocate.
Yeah, exactly. Positive reinforcement, right?
Hmm.
Families need to know when they're doing a great job. Thank you. Okay, we will stop for a moment and I will continue. If you do have any questions though, at any point, feel free to put those in the chat. We are watching that. So anytime you can put questions in the chat or any comments. So we talked about, initial distrust maybe and how to start that relationship off on a great foot. So how do we start building that trust? we already talked about your relationship with the family begins at your very first interaction. The early contact lays the foundation groundwork for trust and positive communication. So really making a good impact right from the beginning. Nonverbal communication is key. So being aware of our body language, our facial expressions, and model deep breathing. One of the things that I had to become aware of is when I get nervous, I laugh, right? And so we don't want to be around families and kind of, being nervous. Maybe their story reminds us of our own story. So we kind of have to watch our body language, right? Zinnia says, remaining non-judgmental. Yeah. Allow the family as much time as needed to share their journey. Use active listening skills. So we don't necessarily need to get their whole story and what happened to them on their first visit, right? Allow them that time, however much time it takes to get to tell you their story, to tell you what they've been through. Yeah, allowing them their time and using those active listening skills. Positive communication. So it's essential to have open, respectful communication. There are instances when we encounter families who may be feeling angry, fearful, or uncertain. It is important for families to learn how to communicate in a clear, concise way. This can be difficult when emotions are engaged. Families will earn more respect and have the attention of their service providers, school staff, doctors, psychologists, other service providers. I'm so sorry. When they communicate effectively, FPAs can guide and teach families effective communication by modeling the behavior. So has anybody been in a school meeting? Well, maybe the family's really angry, right? And they start to shout. What happens? They don't listen to them, right? When they're yelling and they're like very frustrated, they're not going to be heard. So modeling that body language, modeling the open communication, we need to teach our families how to do so. Because yelling isn't going to have you heard. Yes, you're upset. Yes, everything you're saying is valid, but you need to make sure that it's done in a way that that they can hear you, that they can understand. And then nonverbal communication. The significance of nonverbal communication is often undervalued. It is essential for FPAs to engage in nonverbal communication as well as how to comprehend the cues. So we want to watch the body language of our families too. Maybe we're asking them questions and they start to show that they're a little uncomfortable. We want to watch that body language and see what that means and kind of pay attention to those cues. Nonverbal communication can be culturally based. Different cultures can express themselves in significantly different ways from your own communication style. So being flexible, effective interactions rely on the capacity to adjust to various communication styles. So really kind of watching what that family's communication style is. How do they communicate? What is their body language like? Really kind of watching that and understanding that as we get to know our families can help build the trust. I always like to model how the family's sitting, right? So if the family's sitting on the couch, go ahead and sit on the couch with them. If they allow that, sit on the couch, kind of model their body language and make them feel comfortable. Okay, so we are going to do something for a second. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for one moment. We are going to work on a nonverbal example. Miss Carrie Ann is going to tell me about her day. This is a script that I wrote up, just something silly. And I want you to watch my nonverbal communication. I'll put the screen a little bit closer to my face. Carrie Ann, are you there and are you ready?
I'm here. I was gonna try to pin us, but I'm not seeing the. Oh, here we go. Okay, I'm gonna. All right, so people should be able to see us a little bit bigger now.
Okay, there we go. So I am going to be quiet and I'm going to let Miss Carrie Ann tell me about her day. And I want you to watch my cues, my facial expressions, and just kind of think about how it makes you feel. Okay, so when you're ready, go ahead. Carrie Ann, how was your day today? How's it going?
It's been a really rough morning. The kids wouldn't get up for school, and when they finally did, they couldn't find any clothes that they wanted to wear. I thought I would do something really nice for them this morning, and I made breakfast, like hot breakfast, which I never do. My daughter, all of a sudden, has decided that she does not like eggs. My son spilled his milk all over the table, and I did not have any time to eat after I cleaned up that mess. And after all of this, of course, they missed the bus and I had to drive them to school. And of course, there was a lot of traffic and they ended up being late. I tried to practice that self-care that you told me that was so important. And I went and I bought myself an iced coffee, which can't remember the last time I had. But when I got home, I tripped and it went everywhere. It spilled all over my car, all over myself, and I ruined my brand new shirt that I had on. So right now I just feel exhausted and overwhelmed. And, I'm going out to dinner with my partner tonight. So I really hope my day gets better.
Okay. Okay, so I don't know if you guys noticed, I was a little over the top. What did you guys think of that? I didn't say anything at all, right? But that put out a pretty clear message, I would think, right? Pulling out the phone, no eye contact, fiddling with hands, all disrespectful, non-listening actions. That's from Angelica. Right. I don't expect any of us to go into homes and act the way I just acted. But those little things, maybe we're, playing with our hair, the phone, right? If we have a message go off and we just kind of look at our phone, I'm not listening to her if I'm looking at my phone, right? So I know that very invalidating, Andrea says, right. We want to make sure eye contact, yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts or feelings? It didn't feel very good, right? Not actively listening to her, right? How is she gonna feel? She's had an awful day. Do you hear all those things that happened to her? That was a terrible day, but yeah, yeah. She's already had a bad day, and here's her family peer advocate, the one person she can just vent to, and I'm like over here playing with my hair, checking my nails. Who's texting me today? That's terrible, right? Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Okay, so we are going to do this one more time, but this time I'm going to be a polite FPA. So, Miss Carrie Ann, when you're ready, we can do it again.
I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead. Carrie Ann, how was your day today?
Oh, this has been such a rough morning. The kids would not get up for school. And then when they did, they could not find any clothes that they wanted to wear. And then, before I woke them up, I wanted to do something really nice and I had extra time and I made them a hot breakfast, which I never do. But my daughter all of a sudden decided she does not like eggs anymore. And then my son spilled his milk all over the table. I had to change him. I didn't have any time to eat myself. And of course, they missed the bus. And as I was driving them to school, we got stuck in traffic. They were late. So I thought to myself, what would Ashley tell me? I need to take care of myself. So I went and got an iced coffee, which I haven't done in so long. But when I got home and getting out of the car, I tripped and it fell all over me. And I was wearing this brand new shirt that I loved. It's the first time I wore it and it's ruined now. I am exhausted. I am so overwhelmed. But I am going out to dinner tonight with my partner, just the two of us. So I'm really hoping that my day gets better.
Thank you so much. So that was better, right? Again, I was a little over the top with the head nods and stuff, but still, what did you guys think about that one? A little better, right? I was kind of looking at her. Well, I was looking at my camera. I have two screens. So Carrie Ann's over here. So I had to remind myself to look at the camera. But a little bit, it was better, right? Still, again, a little over the top. And I have a hard time not talking. So that was hard for me. But really paying attention, making her feel, somebody said validated, right? Again, both of these examples are a little over the top, but little little bits of nonverbal communication, like even just checking our phone or like looking at our jewelry, something very small can really make her feel invalidated. So that eye contact you guys mentioned, not touching our phone, kind of nodding and understanding what she's saying, those are all things that can help her feel validated, things that can make her feel like I'm listening and gaining those trust, that trust. If I think that if somebody acted the way I did the first time I would be like, I don't want them coming back to my house. I don't want to tell them anything, right? So really, nonverbal communication and just kind of watching our body language. Anyone have any last comments on this before we move on? All right. Thanks for sharing that with me, you guys. So now we're going to talk about balancing the power and what is balance. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, am I? Let me go back to share my screen. Sorry about that. There we go. So, balancing the power. Families may feel intimidated, embarrassed, or fearful of a service provider coming into their home. I know I have, right? We have service providers coming into the home for whatever reasons. It can be feel intimidating, especially if the family has had experience with CPS or just bad experiences with service providers. Us coming into their home might feel very intimidating to them, and it might create a power dynamic where they think we have the power over them rather than walking side by side. Um, and sometimes families may feel the FPA does not have the experience needed to help their child with their diagnosis. So this is a different kind of uh, power dynamic where the family is like, like my child has this diagnosis or they've been through this. Do you really know what you're talking about enough to help me? I don't know if anyone has been through anything like that where, the family isn't sure of you and if you have that experience to help them. So that's why sharing our personal experience, if we're comfortable doing so, is a big help. Saying like, listen, I might not have been through the exact situation, but I felt some of those same feelings, and I know how scary this can be, and I'm here to help you. And then again, this is just a self-reflection tool, something for you to think about. You can think about the families that you're working with now, maybe some families you've worked with in the past. What are some factors that could cause your family to feel intimidated or cautious? Some people have mentioned working with physicians or working in different office spaces, right? And that might be intimidating to them. They might think that you're like other service providers who is going to come in and tell them what to do and how to do it. And then what have you done or can you do to make your families feel comfortable? This is a question you can answer if you want, or it's just a self-reflection. You can just think about that and think about that one going forward. And then establishing an equitable relationship, an equal partnership. So encouraging active involvement for family members is essential for fostering a sense of ownership and collaboration. Sometimes we ask families what they want to work on, what's going good for them, what's not going so great. And some of you have been in situations where you come into the family and you're like, hey, what's going good for you? Or what's been going good? And they can't give you that answer. Sometimes we have to pull that information out. Someone had mentioned before, like kind of holding their hand, right? So fostering a sense of ownership. Hey, you've accomplished all these things, and kind of not pushing them, but guiding them to take control of the situation and letting them be the leaders. Families might not know how to do that. Allow them to take the lead in family decisions. Again, someone mentioned earlier about hand holding. We might have to really guide them more at first, but eventually we want to get them to a place where they feel comfortable making those decisions. Participate in planning activities and invite them to be part of parent advisory boards. So if a family is ready and willing to share their story, invite them to come out and share their story, and invite them to be part of these advisory committees where they can share their story and help make changes. Maria in the comments says, I take family goodie bags with family games and puzzles and toiletries. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Excuse me. So prior to visiting a family, gather information on the youth's conditions as well as any other relevant circumstances. So maybe if you've talked to the family and they've kind of told you what they've been through, or Maybe the youth has a condition that you've never heard of before. We can do research on that, right? So we talk to them on the phone, they've told us this. Maybe do a little bit of background research if you haven't had any familiarity with it, and kind of be ready for the family. And focus on establishing clear boundaries. And we want to do that early on, letting them know what our boundaries are, what we're capable of doing, and what we're not capable of doing. Discuss and understand the goals of the family and what they'd like to work on. So just really, again, using that open communication and listening to what they want to work on. And then boundaries. How do we create those boundaries? Sometimes that can be a little bit harder, especially when we do start to create a relationship with families. They might rely on us very heavily, especially in the beginning, right? So FPAs can develop a close relationship with the families they work with. It's essential to define your role early on and reinforced often. So that sounds kind of rough. Like we don't want to constantly tell the family, hey, I'm only working till 5, I can't answer the phone. But we want to make sure we set our boundaries. And just if we need to remind them, hey, I'm not going to be, my phone's not going to be on tonight. If you need to contact me, you can leave me a message and I'll get it in the morning. This is kind of about our self-care right here. We want to make sure we're taking care of ourselves, and setting the boundaries for ourselves so that we don't, put too much on ourselves. You may share your story at an appropriate time and when you feel comfortable doing so. So, if you don't feel comfortable sharing what you've been through at first, you don't need to do that. You can do that when you feel comfortable to do that. And you may politely decline requests that are out of your scope of work, but help the family find resources. So maybe there's things you don't feel comfortable with. Maybe there's things your agency says you can't do, like transporting the family, different things like that. If you're uncomfortable doing so or you're not able to do so, it is okay to tell the family that. We can tell the family no in respectable, kind ways, but then we can help them find the resources. And again, another self-reflection tool I'd like to put here. I want you to think about, do you have a clear set of your own boundaries? Do you know what your boundaries are? What are some essential elements for maintaining appropriate relationships with the families we work with? So what do you do to keep those relationships professional? Are you comfortable saying no to family when you need to? So just something to think about and making sure we're taking care of ourselves and setting that boundary line. And so we're going to talk about strategies for establishing boundaries. Clearly define your scope of work, explaining to the family how you can work together. Again, so this just, again, is coming in as a partnership, saying like, this is what I can do, and explaining to them so they have the right idea. Openly communicate your availability, letting the family know what hours you are available. So that's something good to do right from the beginning, saying, okay, so these are my work hours. This is when you may be able to contact me. Sometimes we can create a safety plan with the family saying like, hey, if I'm not working and you really need help, maybe we can call this person. I like to say, make a toolbox, right? So if this happens, call this person, kind of giving them the understanding of who they can call in certain situations when you're not working. It helps kind of set that boundary. And you may politely decline requests that are out of your scope of work. You can help the family find the resources to fulfill their requests. Does anyone have any examples they want to share where they had to do that? You can pop that in the chat if you want. And respect the family's boundaries, cultural, and traditions. And so we were going to talk about empowering the family. At first, we might have to walk alongside them, really holding their hand. But I said a couple times already, we want to work ourselves out of a job. So what happens when the family does not have the confidence to take the lead? You come in, we create a great relationship with them, but then they might lean on us too heavy, where they're not confident enough to take the lead. Jessica says, family thought I would be able to provide counseling therapy, had to explain my role and find them a therapist. Yeah, exactly what we were just talking about, Jessica. You explained your role and then you helped them find the resources. Thank you. And Julie says, when families want me to represent them at school, I will kindly refer them to the educational attorney. Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's great. Again, she explained her role and helped them find the resources for it. Great examples. Having control of the direction may be a new concept to families. Maybe they haven't had the opportunity before, or perhaps they're used to a service provider telling them what they need to do. So they might not be used to someone saying, hey, what do you want to do? What direction do you want to take? They might not be used to it, and they're like, I don't know. So using that communication, listening to what the family, we can kind of pick that out. Again, we don't want to tell the family what they need to work on, but we can probably get that information by listening to them. The family first needs to know how to advocate for themselves, as well as the importance of family voice. So reminding them how important their voice is, that they are the expert on their children, on their family. A lot of families, they might not feel like they're the expert, right? Especially when they're working with other service providers, that power imbalance might be there. And then what does it look like for an FPA? How can we teach families to advocate for ourselves? Tiffany had said I had to politely decline to go to custody court with a family that I was working with, both parents in their separate homes. Yeah. So yeah, it is okay. Going back, it is okay to say no. Expressing their needs. FPAs collaborate with families to create goals and objectives. However, families may struggle with creating their own goals in several ways. So guide the family to use I statements when expressing their needs. Help the family learn to be assertive without being aggressive. Families may feel like they are burdened when expressing their needs. So a lot of times we work with families and they just won't tell us what they need because they feel like a burden, right? They feel like it's just too much to ask. But using those I statements helps families to determine what they need and understanding that they're important. Encourage the family to recognize their strengths, challenges, and resources needed for their success. I like to go back to the notes. I like to go back to some of the assessments we do with the family and showing them their strengths, showing them what they've done so far, and showing them how far they've come. Ensure a family is knowledgeable about their rights. A family might not have confidence if they don't know what their rights are. Encourage participation. So when the family looks to you for the answer, turn it back to them and what they want, and celebrate success. I think somebody had said earlier, just kind of commending the family when they do stuff right. So really celebrate those success, no matter how big or small. I think even those baby steps that families take, we can celebrate those as well. We don't have to have a huge success. Small successes can be and should be celebrated. Excuse me. And then this is just a quote that I like, and I hope it might help some of you. It's from Mother Teresa. It says, I can do things you cannot. You can do things I cannot. Together, we can do great things. So this takes it back to the beginning. FPAs can be experts on navigating certain systems. Maybe we have been through similar situations as a family. So we can provide our expertise. There's things that we might be able to do or things that we might know that the families might not be able to do right away or that they don't know. In families, they're the expert on their child. They know what they've been through. They know what works for their children. They can do things that we can't. They know things that we can't. So when we put those two things together, it really creates a great team. And at the end of the day, the youth is going to be the one who's validated. Okay. So that's it for now. So we can open it up for any questions. Are there any questions or any comments on today's discussion? Or are there any future topics that you would be interested in learning about in future TA calls? You can put this information in the comments. You can raise your hand if you have a question. Any thoughts? Any thoughts on anything we talked about at all today? Precious says I guide the family to self-advocate sometimes by telling them to write things down that they would like to bring up beforehand and read it over. FPAs in the emergency department? Yes. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Albert. He said it was a good TA call, gave me things to consider. Thank you. I'm glad for that. Tiffany said, oh. Is it, Nicole asked a question, or there's a couple questions in here actually. Andrea said, how do we respond to a parent who's threatening and aggressive upon initial contact? That's great. So the family, that's a great question. The family is aggressive, upon initial contact. So a lot of times we kind of talked about families might not be difficult on purpose, right? So what is the reason behind that? Maybe they've had bad experiences in the past. First of all, I want to point out that we want to be comfortable too. So if a family is aggressive, take a step back and kind of look at that. You want to make sure you're safe, you're comfortable. We don't necessarily have to pair perfectly with every family. Maybe we can try to find out some of those reasons they're upset. But again, you want to make sure you're safe. Has anyone had any experience with that? We definitely want to be careful with a family who's threatening. Maybe go back to your supervisor. Um, have a call with the supervisor and say, listen, I'm here to explain, or have them with you on the call and explain your role and explain what you can do for the family, but letting them know also that you want to make sure that you're safe and that you're able to help them, but you're not able to help them when they're angry. We kind of talked about that a little bit in IEP meetings when, a family's emotions are high. They can't communicate what they need effectively. So, yeah, definitely, I would say maybe bring it back to your supervisor, see if you can create common ground with the family, but just definitely put your self first and your comfortableness with that. And then there's another question. Nicole says, is it against our scope of practice to go with a family to the school and be there for them during meetings? Definitely not. I think we can support the family in meetings. What I would say is we don't want to talk for the family. If, say they ask a question, kind of and the family looks at you kind of want to put them back. You can whisper to them, say like, hey, remember we talked about, but we want the family to advocate for themselves. On the beginning, that might be a lot of hand holding, but no, I wouldn't say that's out of the scope of practice. Sherry is brand new. Well, we're glad to have you. Thanks for coming. Maria says clinical staff uses CPS as a weapon. Yes. Against parents, and parents get angry. Yes, that is something I've seen also as CPS used as a weapon. So we have some stuff coming up, and Carrie Ann put
a link to our survey for this training in the chat. We really do look at these and we very, very much value your feedback. It is an anonymous survey. There's just a few questions. If you wouldn't mind taking that. And Ashley has a few upcoming events on here, and I'm going to put some links to those. Oh, that is the wrong link. I'm sorry. I was logged in and it logged me out.
our next.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Karen. Our next FPA training will be by TJ Curtis. It's on family engagement, and that's on April 18th from 10 to 11:30. Discharge planning for FPAs webinar is on Tuesday, March 25th from 2 to 3:30, and I will be doing that. And our next FPA Lived Experience Cafe is April 1st, 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. This is our Family Peer Advocate Credential Advisory Committee. This is for any FPA who's professionally credentialed. We meet 10 times per year for this. If this is something you're interested in joining, we meet for 1 hour and we represent FPA voice in professional training and credentialing. There is, Carrie Ann put that link in the comments as well if you're interested in applying to be part of the FPA Credential Advisory Committee. And
I'll put a link to the CTAC event that is on Tuesday that actually spoke about the discharge planning for FPAs. There's a link to the registration for that. I also put our event flyer up so you can download that. It has registration to this training, the lived experience training, and then there's a supervisor event as well. So if you're a supervisor, that would be for you. And if not, you can pass that on to your supervisor. And the second page has the information about the advisory committee. So I want to thank Ashley and thank everybody for attending this event. It was fantastic. Thank you so much, Ashley, for all that amazing knowledge and expertise. And thank everybody for your for attending, for your attention, for your comments, for your questions. They were absolutely amazing. And we hope to see you next month for TJ's training on family engagement. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day.